And
Well, thank you for that update. Hello, welcome to everyone to the Seattle-King County Continuum of Care Board regular meeting. Today is May 1st, 2024. And we'll ground and center ourselves and we'll get started.
Yeah, I'll start with the land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded land of the Duwamish people and other Coast Salish tribes. We thank the original stewards of this land, but it's also important to note that this kind of acknowledgement is not a new practice developed by colonial institutions. Land acknowledgement is a traditional custom dating back centuries for many Native communities and nations. For non-Indigenous communities, land acknowledgement is a powerful way of showing respect and honoring the Indigenous peoples of the land of which we work and live. Acknowledgement is a simple way of resisting the erasure of Indigenous histories and working towards honoring and inviting the truth.
Thank you.
Theory of change?
Yes. Theory of change. If we create a homelessness response system that centers on the voices of people with lived experience of homelessness, then we can focus on responding to the needs and eliminating inequities to end homelessness. Within the context for our work so far with the Continuum of Care, the Seattle-King County Continuum of Care Board, referred to as the Advisory Committee in the Interlocal Agreement, serves as our region's COC board and carries out mandatory functions required by HUD regulations. The COC board plays an important role in ensuring King County receives federal funding. Under HUD regulations, the full COC membership has authority over the Continuum's work and the COC board.
Roll call.
Roll call.
All right, when you go through roll call, please say present if you are here. Patricia Sam,
present.
Tamara Bauman,
Here.
Kenyatta Carol Hillman, Lise Castro,
Here.
Jaja Floyd. She's here, but she has poor service.
Here.
Oh, she is.
Here.
Jaja.
Can you hear me?
Yep,
Here.
thank you. Marvin Petrell,
Here.
Antoinette Lambert. Let's see, Antoinette. Dorsal plans.
Here.
Ruby Romero, here. Martha Sassarosi,
Here.
Christina Sawicki,
Here.
Sherry Tillman, Galena White,
Here.
with
Sherry.
10. Oh. Is Galena is also here. Okay, with,
Sorry, I was having trouble with my mute button. I'm here.
no, you're good. I went a little fast there. With 11, oh, sorry, 6, 7, 8. With 11 members present, we do have quorum.
Thank you, Alex. Moving right along, for those who are joining us virtually, there's been a slight change in the agenda. We were going to start off with welcoming our newest YAP board member, but she was unable to make it today. So we're going to skip ahead and start our welcome, our first opportunity to meet our interim CEO for the KCRHA. With that, I'll pass it to Scott.
I needed to make the intro. Oh, that was the intro.
Sherry, you're not muted. You look at the camera, and that's where you look at them. Feels weird.
Hello, all. Thank you. First of all, thank you, Marvin and Jaja for having me. I have had the pleasure of engaging with you both in the capacity from the IP and various meetings. So I count that as already having engaging with the continuum of care vicariously through Zaza, Lamont, and Marvin. I come to you today to give you just a brief introduction of who I am. I am the husband of 30 years to Yvonne Terrell Powell. She's a doctor, and she serves as Vice President of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging at Edmonds College. I come to you as the father of two beautiful children. I have a 29-year-old daughter who's just completed her master's degree from University of Houston. And I have a 23-year-old son who's living out his dream, playing football for University of Miami. Just came off of playing in the national championship for University of Washington this previous year. By profession, my background is I'm a CPA and I have a master's degree in finance. And I've spent the majority of my career working in the financial vertical, regardless of what industry it has been in, whether it's been real estate, corporate, and not-for-profit. My most recent 15 years have been in the not-for-profit space. I first started with working with Treehouse, the organization that serves youth in foster care. My continued progression in the not-for-profit space includes becoming CFO of College Success Foundation, which is an organization that provides scholarships and academic supports to those who are first generation, English as a second language, certain demographics of lower income. I continued my progression and became the CFO of United Way of King County. And so United Way of King County, if you know, it's a fund aggregator who raises dollars and then redistributes them to the community according to the mission and vision and vertical that United Way has established. And lastly, I was the CFO for the YMCA of Greater Seattle, which is a hybrid of what we call a hybrid business, where a lot of their revenue comes from membership. And then the other source of the revenue comes from serving youth and serving other communities. Most recently, before this stint here, I started my own financial services business, providing the level of expertise that I have in providing for small businesses. It had yielded a contract with Bird Bar Place, and affectionately known as Campfire House. If you're from Seattle, it was Campfire House until the last 15 years when we've gone through a name change. But essentially, Bird Bar provides energy assistance and has a food bank here in the central Seattle area and serves the community, and has been doing that. This year is the 60th year anniversary. And so I served as their CFO, contract CFO, before my tenure here. So I'll stop there, and has any questions?
Well, I would like to welcome you, and I'd like to give members of the board an opportunity to say hello.
Thank you so much for coming.
Other doors?
If we're able to ask questions, which I think was the offer, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure and opportunity to meet you. I was just curious kind of to hear in your own words kind of what you envision, what you see the future of KCRHA and kind of the regional approach to homelessness here in King County kind of looking like.
So I would answer the easier part of that first, is that I support the mayor's notion that the regional approach to homelessness is the best way. We can see the kind of whack-a-mole concept of each city thinking they have the best and the brightest way of doing things. We've seen the results of that. I do have to acknowledge that while that is perceived as the best approach, some of the missteps from KCRHA in the previous year or two have led people to question that. And so while I believe it, I think that the task is, the vision is to execute on the vision. It's not changing the vision. I just think there's been poor execution on the vision. I mean, it was rooted in centering the lived experience. It was also a theory of change that talked about if you center the lived experience, what you think you believe the end result would be. It was a function of working with some of the best and the brightest thought leaders in the space, and between those who have lived experience, those who have learned experience, and those who have learned expertise, we should be able to generate a system that, again, begins to reduce homelessness in the Seattle and surrounding areas. So the vision hasn't changed, so I don't have a different vision. If you looked at my Vita, what you would see is I have a expertise of execution. I've been successful in turning around businesses, driving hard, complex ideas and initiatives through organizations that have been successful. And so I think as much as anything, KCRHA needs a little bit of that.
Thank you. Lise?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I don't want to take away any of your time. It's just the mention of our theory of change, the notion of centering people with lived experience. I know that I, as one of the founding board members, am running out of time. I believe that this is my last meeting here. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I just wanted to elevate again. I know that I am not forgetting, and I don't want anybody else, especially people who are new to this space, to forget that there was a youth action board that had been active since, I believe, 2017. And in that theory of change of centering people with experience, that youth action board was replaced without communication. Well, I guess there was communication, but it was, yeah, not soon enough. We had a meeting. We were promised an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, to have support for our existing youth action board so that we could be sustainable and grow, and then it was replaced by the KCRHA. So yeah, again, very important part of history that I do not want erased once I step away from this board. Thank you. Yes, Tamara?
Yeah, hi, this is Tamara. Welcome and thank you for coming. I have an ask that you do as much as possible to make sure that the boards are all meeting together and that decision-making is not unilaterally made by the governing committee, and that the continuum of care be elevated as leaders in ending homelessness in our community. And that our political leaders do not contribute to the criminalization of our most vulnerable neighbors. And I will not be silent about that. And I hope that that's taken in the spirit in which it is intended, and that is just being a good advocate and fighting for my community, who has been oppressed and marginalized since time immemorial. So I ask that we strengthen this infrastructure to better support the people who are extremely vulnerable, including people experiencing homelessness, including people with severe mental illness and who have behavioral health challenges. We need to prioritize them over the political interests of our leaders and including nonprofits, the nonprofit industrial complex. Let's get at the root of some of this division in our community. And that's my ask to you. Thank you.
Is there any other board members that would like to welcome Ms. Powell? If not, we made the announcement during the practice session, but now that we've gone public, I would like to say if there are any questions or asks, please follow up and place them in the chat so that we can get responses back out to board members and to the public by the next meeting. Well, thank you for coming and joining us today. I see time. Up next on the agenda is approving April's minutes.
Thanks, Terrell. I make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Yeah, to approve.
We have a
April
motion.
minutes.
We have a motion to approve April's minutes. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Any edits, changes, or omissions that need to either be added or changed? Not hearing any, not to brush, but not hearing any, I am going to call for the vote. All those in favor of accepting? Do we have to do a roll call?
Yeah. I can't never keep track. There's too many.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, I'm going to call out for names if you guys want to say if you approve. Patricia Sam,
Approve.
thank you. Tamara Bauman,
Approve.
thank you. Kenyatta Carol Hillman. Not here. Lise Castro,
Approve.
thank you. Jaja Floyd. I do not see her here. Marvin Futrell,
Approved.
thank you. Antoinette Lambert. Dorsal plants,
Approve.
thank you. Ruby Romero, approved. Thank you. Martha Sacerosi,
Approve.
thank you. Christina Selwicki. Christina Selwicki, do you approve the April meeting minutes? We will circle back. Sherry Tillman,
Approve.
thank you. Galena White,
Approve.
thank you. One more time for Christina. Approved, thank you. All right, we are good.
Thank you, Alex. Moving right along, the next piece on our agenda is public comment. As always, there are no time restrictions on public comment. We will take public comment throughout the meeting. If folks would like to put additional questions or comments in the chat, we will always post them and respond as we are able at each monthly meeting. So presently, do we have anyone that?
We do not. Oh, no, oh, we do not, but also, the parking lot questions are posted and were sent out to you from last month's meeting. If you haven't had a chance to review them, they are also on the website as well.
Alex, we do have a hand raised in the attendees. I'm not able to elevate to panelist, but there is a hand raised in attendees for public comment.
Oh, I thought I could see it. Sorry about that. Courtney Love. You should be able to speak. Courtney,
Hello. Sorry, can you hear me?
yep,
Yes.
Sorry about that. My name is Courtney. I work with the Lived Experience Coalition, and in discussion, we were reviewing the priorities list, and we're very impressed with the document. Lots of appreciation for the work done on that. We are suggesting a language shift from words with the root word of home, like homeless and homelessness, be shifted to words with the root word of house, like unhoused and houselessness. So we ask that you make a language shift, approve it contingent on a language shift. Thank you.
Thank you, Court. Up next,
Jay in the room.
Jay,
Galena has their hand raised before.
yeah. Galena,
I'm just wondering if it's a good time for me to make an announcement.
good. Can I come back to you right after we get everybody who has public comment done, and then I will allow for board announcement.
Okay.
Jay,
Okay, I just want to, oh yeah, I forgot about that. No, I'm not spreading. Y'all don't want me to talk about COVID up in here. I'm keeping my mask on.
My name is Jade. I'm a member of the COC, a new member. I just wanted to give kudos to the COC and the COC board because I genuinely believe that this is a space where we can take some community power and empower ourselves. And I really appreciate everything that all the board members have said today. Also, I think it was a happy surprise to have the CEO here today. But I agree, I want to acknowledge that he acknowledged, he did speak with the IB. So a lot of us were on that contact. I want to echo the language change as well that was mentioned from home to house. There is a legal definition behind it that really does hold weight, but we're trying to get it to hold more weight. But I also want to say maybe that's something that we take to the entire continuum and get more feedback about. Because I do know that this is a sensitive topic, and back in the early days, literally like day 2, I was having this conversation with Mark and we butted heads about it at the KCRHA. So I want to honor that this is a sensitive topic. Language and words are so important, and so I appreciate this being brought forward to the COC board. I hope that the board considers taking it to the entire COC for further feedback. Thank you.
Thank you for coming and joining us today. Anyone else for public comment?
Nope. Just want to make sure that Courtney, your hand's still up. She's done. And before I take a lead up.
Alrighty. We're going to move along with our agenda for today. Oh, yes. And I wanted to create space because we have a board member, Galena White, who has an announcement for us. Galena?
Thank you very much, and I will try to make this brief. I, first of all, have been very grateful for this opportunity to participate and have a voice in the public discussion and in government. However, a few months ago, I brought up issues about the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, with all the board and KCRHA members who are there. And I asked for certain things and I was promised certain things. I asked for an independent investigator to come in and investigate whether or not KCRHA and the COC were upholding the legal obligations they had to the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I was promised in that meeting that this would happen explicitly. When I asked for the meeting minutes to be updated to reflect that, the meeting minutes were not updated accurately. I've asked many times for the actual things that I was promised, and forgive me, I'm very nervous right now. Basically, I've been asking for ADA accommodations. Other people here who needed them haven't got them. I brought it up in a meeting. I was promised certain things. I was promised that King County would make it public that they were promising me that, because I needed to hold them accountable for that. It was promised to me in that meeting that we would be held, that KCRHA and the COC would be held accountable for those things. And I have not seen the movement toward helping people with disabilities that I would like to see. And the minutes have not been accurately updated. I don't currently have the impetus to fight the ableism at this organization. And I'm sorry to say that and put it that way, but it's the truth. I've seen a lot of other problems with this organization, from inefficiencies and people not communicating with each other to a whole bunch of other things. And honestly, it's not any different than any other nonprofit. And honestly, a nonprofit we shouldn't be doing it this way. We need to have maybe a statewide Section 8 agency that provides Section 8 to everyone who needs it, period. And what we're doing here, trying to niggle away at the little bits and pieces we can find to slightly increase the chances of somebody who needs it more getting something. It's not working. I don't have the energy to contribute when everybody doesn't care about ableism. Okay, so I'm sorry, and I love you guys. And I really appreciate all the chances I've been given for this. And I'm gonna leave now. I am not any longer a member of the COC board. I'm, retiring or whatever. Resigning. Thank you. All right, have a great day, everybody.
You too, Kalina. Thank you so much for your service. We will follow up as best we can to with Kalina, Board Member White, and we will share some of the questions raised. I plan to treat it as if she had actually put it in the chat. So
Do you
that
see
we
my
can have a
hand?
clue.
Oh,
Whose hand?
Christina.
Oh, Christina, yes.
You know, I had to file a complaint with the federal government myself, like I told everybody ahead of time that I was going to do. I went directly to the feds and filed a discrimination complaint with them. And they took me seriously. And it's sad that I had to take my ADA complaint to the federal government, and HUD took it themselves. I didn't even have to go to ADA Office of Civil Rights.com. They took it and went with it and said it was wrong. They normally don't even do that. They let the ADA.gov do it. They took it upon themselves and said what our KCRHA was doing was wrong based on people who have disabilities. And the ableism has just been rooted. It wasn't even this bad with All Home. All Home was there and provided awesome accommodations. And then we get KCRHA and it just like all of a sudden ableism stepped in and it just became the way. So I understand completely what Galina said, and I'm sorry that she has resigned. But as I said, and I did let you guys know, and Marvin, you could shake your head. You remember me saying it. I'm filing a complaint with the feds. And I did. I had to file a complaint with the federal government Department of, HUD to get my accommodations made and fought for. And that is sad that we have to do this. It is a very sad situation in a government-based committee that disability accommodations are like this. And we've heard from others who've also said, their gender identity stuff has been an issue within our group in the past. We've struggled with the isms, and I've even had problems with it. So I'm not saying I'm nowhere near perfect. I've made mistakes and I apologize to Lise and others. I know my mistakes, but the ableism has been a huge, huge, huge battle for me. I still haven't been paid, you guys know, since November. And any other King County group, any other state-run group, any other federal group, they take care of it. It's handled, I'm paid. I don't have a problem. King County has been perfect with me getting paid and handling it themselves. And then I come here to KCRHA, I haven't been paid since November. So it is a problem when somebody who has disabilities, and I know some of you have hidden disabilities and other disabilities, but when somebody says, I have a disability, I need help with this, I need it done, this way, can you help support me? That kind of stuff. And then we lose somebody because they don't feel like their needs are being met. That shows upon us how poor it is. That's just poor reflection of us. And it just adds to the anger I already had, as Tamara and Ruby knows, coming into today. I had not heard from Galina, but as you all have told, I had to file a complaint with the federal government to get heard with my accommodation needs. And so it's a sad place that we are at within KCRHA, just a very sad place. I just want to put that out there with myself and apologize for being winded, but I'm pissed. So.
Thank you. Once again, we'll do our best to try to follow up, to keep us moving so that we can get as much done on our agenda as possible. I want to move us along to our next block action block, which will end with a vote. So it's on the local values and priorities for this upcoming NOFA work. And I'll hand it over to Kelsey Beckmeyer from KCRK.
Thank you, Marvin. So I'm going to be sharing my screen with you all to go through the document that the NOFO planning group has worked on. This was sent out to you all last week and also posted online. And I have gone through to highlight as well areas where we use the word homelessness in response to the public comment for you all to review, just so that's more visually seen. I will preface that there are a couple of areas where the language does need to stay as it is. One is it's a KCRHA theory of change, and that's kind of beyond this board's scope of review. And another one is around particular HUD definitions. So I will notate those as we walk through this. But want to walk through the document, go through the different values and priorities to receive some feedback live in action, and at the end call for a vote regarding adoption of this. So the values and priorities is really the guiding document that we use for the Continuum of Care Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, renewal process. Every year we have to competitively renew all of our COC funding, which is about $60-some thousand. I don't have the exact number in my mind. But we have to go through a process to renew those funds. And part of the renewal is a local process where we rate and rank all of the renewing projects as well as new projects for funding. And we want to anchor the way that we rate and rank in our local values and priorities. So this document really is kind of the heart of the NOFO process and how we want to be looking at our COC funded projects. So I'm going to kind of go through this. This has been prepared by the NOFO committee, and I want to just thank my COC board members on that committee, Ruby, Dorsal, and Tamra, and Martha. Martha is our newer member, for helping really guide this document this year. And I'll just kind of go through and welcome your comments and recommendations as we go. So please don't hesitate to come off of mute, raise hands, put things in the chat. I can't see the chat very well, so if somebody would be able to lift that up, but want to get feedback as we go through this. So this, the Seattle King County Continuum of Care Board affirms the following values and prioritization considerations anchored in love for our community to guide the development of the fiscal year 24 project priority listing. So our first value, so these are the overall values we have as a continuum. Center our theory of change of if we create a homelessness response system that centers the voices of those who have lived experience of homelessness, then we will be able to focus on responding to the needs and eliminating inequities in order to end homelessness for all in planning, programming, and evaluation of continuum of care services. Number 2, promote our mission to significantly decrease the incidence of homelessness throughout King County using equity and social justice principles. Number 3, promote development of new permanent housing in underserved areas of King County. Number 4, promote anti-violent, human-centered well-being and partnerships with a housing first and harm reduction approach instead of further perpetuation of undue burdens such as harmful displacement, fining, and imprisonment of our unhoused neighbors. Number 5, promote equitable access and service provision with an intersectional and anti-racist approach, serving those who are historically marginalized and disproportionately impacted by the experience of homelessness in our community. Number 6, develop a culturally responsive system that embraces equity, liberation, and deeply supports the importance of our unique cultural histories and collective needs. Number 7, maximize our community response to homelessness, including leveraging as much HUD Continuum of Care program funding to preserve continuity of services and supports in housing for program participants. And I see a hand, yes.
Well, thank you, Alex. You can lower that head. I just have one question. Homelessness is highlighted throughout the document. Is that due to the possible terminology of calling it houselessness or?
Yes, this was to point out where we use that verbiage for you all as the board to review and see if you wanted to change that wording. Yes. I will say in number 1, it likely needs to stay because that's the theory of change for KCRHA. And then there's one other place here at point B where this is based on the federal definition. So those are the 2 places I would recommend maintaining that due to, oh my goodness, what are words? Due to 1, it's the theory of change and maintaining the theory of change, and 2, this is based on HUD definition.
Mark. Thank you, Kelsey. I have a hand up in the room and Lise Castro, I'm not quite sure. Lise, you want to ask the question first and then we'll go to the room?
Yeah, for sure. I do hear that the majority of folks are asking for a change in language to speaking about being housed as opposed to whether it's like homeless or unhoused. I know that I personally do not feel like there needs to be a language change. Whenever I think about the difference between a house or a home, I think about a physical structure versus a place where you feel safe. I think that everybody deserves a home where they feel safe and comfortable. I also want to acknowledge that being housed is not enough. I know that, for instance, like whenever people are doubled up, they are in a house. Whenever they are couch surfing, they are in a house. Whenever they are experiencing domestic violence and want to leave, they are still in a house. A lot of the time. I do agree with the language of experiencing homelessness rather than just being homeless. I feel like that is important to not just reduce somebody's whole identity to the housing experience that they are in. But just speaking for myself, I don't personally feel the need to change the language from homelessness to unhoused. I feel like they're both good interchangeably. I also want to elevate that the H in KCRHA still stands for homelessness. So unless we're trying to change all that as well, I feel like there are other ways to use our time, but I also don't want to step on toes. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Lise.
Jade?
Yes, thank you. So I just want a friendly reminder, we are the Continuum of Care. We are not the we are not the KCRHA. The KCRHA is here to serve the COC. And we oversee the KCRHA. If the COC wants language change, then, or at least hinting to it, we should at least explore it. I appreciate the HUD that's not necessarily the federal I mean, yeah, by virtue of HUD, that's a HUD definition on there. So I do appreciate that being there. But and I appreciate you acknowledging that we need to identify that that is the KCRHA theory of change and not necessarily something that HUD expects the COC to adhere to. And I think that we need to these are friendly suggestions, whatever, we'll talk about it more. We need to change or just highlight that that's the HUD definition. And that's really important because they use language to weaponize us in order to say, oh, well, technically that person's actually got services, blah, blah, blah. Like it gets really to the weeds. But like I said earlier, I think that we need to ask and invite the entire continuum to this. So my question is this a living document? Can we constantly update it?
Yes, this
Okay.
will be my 4th iteration of our values and priorities as we've developed for NOFA applications. With
Okay.
that, I'd like to pass back to Kelsey
Oh.
so she can finish guiding us through the document and we can open the floor up for further discussion.
I have my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dorsal, if it's, go right in.
Well, I
Please,
just
go
wanted,
ahead.
yeah, because I just wanted to clarify at least something, because I want us to have a conversation about language, and I do want to clarify, like, Lise said that she felt there was a majority. I'm not sure that we have a majority on the language change. I have some thoughts and opinions, and I'm happy to share them now, but I'm happy to wait.
Thank you.
Crystal, I use
if
he,
we-
him, and they, them pronouns, not she, her
Yeah.
pronouns. Thank
I
you.
apologize.
I would offer that I'd like to give Kelsey an opportunity to finish going through the document.
Yeah.
If we are able to vote on this today, that will be great. If not, we can start the discussions that will be then put in front of us at our next opportunity. Hopefully not in the special session because they're dropping the no vote early.
Yep.
So. Kelsey.
And I would love to anchor that this is developed by the NOFO planning work group, which is made up of board members, KCRHA staff, as well as COC members. So this is the work group's recommendation. So the work of this is done on that work group, which was opened up to everyone to join, and we took applications for participation. So welcome others who want to participate in that space to do so. I will continue on with number 8, and I'll kind of go through the values and then go through the priorities, and from there we can have further discussion. If there are hands that come up in the interim, I'll keep my eye out for that as well. So we have number 8 for values, which is grow a proactive, accountable system through transparent and ethical practices, guided by accountability to those we serve to ensure funding is clearly and thoughtfully allocated. So those are our overall system values. And next is our prioritization section. And this is the qualities that we want to look at in individual projects as we evaluate them. So we want to prioritize projects that elevate the voices of people with lived and living experience as experts in the development and implementation of planning, programming, and evaluation. Focus on those who are currently experiencing literal and chronic homelessness, including those who are experiencing trauma or lack of safety related to or fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, and/or other dangerous, traumatic, or life-threatening conditions. Actively participate in the continuum of care through demonstrable racial equity and social justice-oriented practices that center community and are in alignment with the values of community accountability, housing first, trauma-informed care, harm reduction, prevention, and whole person well-being through focusing on what is meaningful to the individual. Demonstrate commitment to power sharing and deference to people with lived and living experience in organizational design and policy development processes through actions such as dedicated board seats or management positions. Advance as a collective the goals of the COC, including addressing racial disproportionality and achieving equitable outcomes for Indigenous, Black, Pacific Islanders, and other people of color, trans individuals, the broader LGBTQIA Two-Spirit Plus communities, and people living with disabilities. Advance as a collective the goals of the COC to support our elder community, which is the largest growing population for those experiencing and at risk of homelessness, to access dignified, appropriate housing to thrive as they age. Have positive outcomes as defined by the participant to permanent housing and subsequently stability, including economic stability as the primary focus. Do not replace mainstream resources such as federally funded health insurance, cash benefits, and other federally funded behavioral health services. Work to connect people served by COC-funded programs with community-based, culturally responsive resources. Participate in the homelessness management information system with complete high-quality data for both local metrics and HUD standards. Demonstrate alignment with HUD Housing First standards, including screening, program entry, person-centered services, and termination policies. Perform well against HUD Continuum of Care goals and positively impact local system performance and equity outcomes. And finally, consistently meet and exceed operational standards for spending, match, occupancy, and reporting. I see a few things in the comments. Not about the values and priorities. Want to open up for further comment, questions, clarifications.
I have hands in the room. Do we have any hands online? We'll start.
Dorsal has his hand.
Dorsal. I always try to clear that first.
Yeah, so I appreciate and completely accept and understand the concern around the word homelessness versus unhoused. I think part of my concern in changing the language here is that it might convolute the message as we take this document out into the community. And I think having, as was pointed out, homelessness is in KCRHA's name. It will be in this document. And so I think it would be beneficial for what we're trying to do to maintain kind of that standardized language here.
Thank you. Dr. Sen.
Hi, I just want to add that on number E, it states and also in the sub division, you have it standing out as advanced as a collective. It states for equitable outcomes for Indigenous Black, but I also want to recognize that language. First, before it was Black, we were African Americans / Black. That's a culturally appropriate language as a suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia.
Going around the room.
I am going to
Jane?
put a comment there for the review.
I have some clarifying questions. First, is this the first time that the full continuum has been presented in this document?
No,
Okay. When was the last time?
it's been on our website for a while, and we presented it. We reintroduced this to the board back in April, I believe, may have been the April or March.
Okay, and then it was asked to review it and then come back with feedback. Was it review? And I'm asking genuinely because I've been behind on things, so I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding the full process. And so the timeline is what I'm trying to understand, and trying to fully understand why it was even mentioned that this should be passed today, because there has been some suggestions put forward. Is there a need for this to be put for motion today? Because it feels real familiar to what other boards do. So, but I don't want to say that it is that kind of move if I don't have all the information. That's why I was asking these clarifying questions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I was just gonna clarify, my point was mostly to just bring and uplift the fact that most of the people experiencing homelessness in King County and Seattle, like the average mortality rate or age, excuse me, the average mortality age is actually around 48. So that's actually younger than the elder or senior citizen community. And so I just wanted to uplift that and just make sure that that's well known, that a lot of people wouldn't even make it to the elder age. So just want to hold some space for that. Thank you.
Right. For clarification for the chair, and then I'll come back. Options for the board today would, if there were changes that folks would like to see, would it go back to the work group and then come back to this space? Or
Yeah, it would go back to the work group, as that's where the work of this happens. And the board is the representation of the COC membership. So you as the board are the ones who can take that into consideration and decide on the voting piece. I will state from a timeline part with the NOFO, it's pretty critical that we get this voted no later than June in order to make sure that all of our materials and process for the NOFO and to give the community enough time to know about changes and updates to rating or ranking, which we are hoping to get done in late May, early June. So we want to be able to have ample time to provide updates and changes and information, as this document will be guiding some shifts to our rating and ranking process. And we need to have time to prepare and do all of those pieces within both the NOFO work group and then work that's done by KCRHA staff with the NOFO work group input.
Alrighty, I'm going to go around once more, and then I'm probably gonna have to call discussion at this time so that we can, initiate our vote.
Yeah, I just have one more clarifying question for you, Kelsey. Thank you so much, and thank you for the board for engaging in this process. And it just went out of my brain. I'm having, oh, yeah, sorry, there's a lot going on in person, which I'm happy to be here, but I missed when you first started presenting. I missed some things that you were saying because it was kind of loud in here because of talking. Did I miss anything about criminalization in this document? Is that mentioned? Because
Yep, we have a value. Oh my goodness, give me 1 moment.
Number 4.
Number 4, promote anti-violent, human-centered well-being and partnerships with a housing first and harm reduction approach instead of further perpetuation of undue burdens such as harmful displacement, fining, and imprisonment of our unhoused neighbors.
okay, I'll accept that for now. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna, I forgot it. It's okay. Oh, wait, can we make amendments to this after we voted in? Is that, there's a process for that, I would presume. So if we did have something that needs to be really added into it, we can make an amendment at a later time if we can vote this in today. Yeah.
I would offer,
What?
it's really hard in the room if more than one is speaking. I will offer the process that we have in front of us today. If there are amendments, if folks are seeking language change, then it goes, we can simply send it back to the work group so that takes place. Or folks can choose to accept these values and priorities as written, and we will use that for this year's local application, and the process begins anew next year.
To Dorsey.
Dorsal?
Just really quickly, I just wanted to say that the reason that the word criminalization was not specifically put in here was actually based off of a training from the Housing Narrative Lab based in response to the grants pass. And I'd be happy to send information on why we chose this language instead of using the word criminalization. And then I also want to uplift that there is a member of the public who has their hand up.
Thank you. I can't see it at all.
See what?
This is one of the attendees that have their hand up.
Oh, it's Keisha. Okay,
Okay, sure. Brandon? You're there. You can
Yes,
speak.
thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, this is the second time. Just to note that I raised my hand and had to wait for a very long time to speak. So that's one thing that I want to be accounted for. But so maybe in D or E, I think should be something included about taking accountability for the division of participation in the board. And I think wording is a huge part of the conversation. Just to back up changing the language, I think language is a huge way of dividing a group of people. And so I think that it should be noted in here that we take accountability for that when people bring up or they voice that they feel like they're divided or not spoken for, or not up to date or up to speed on certain conversations in documents and part of different voting systems or whatever, just that they can be included. I think that that should be noted in here. That way we can keep it documented so we're able to keep people accountable, because there has been many times where there has been a division in voices. And so yes, that kind of leads to my point of backing up what Courtney and even Jade said. Words can be used in a very strategic way to keep people from speaking up and keeping people to be empowered to speak in these spaces. is that a divide? So I just want to look that up. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to highlight that I am taking away that there is something we can do a better job at it, and that is documenting changes. And when we go through these processes,
Yep,
things
I've got
will
this,
evolve.
for ease of our eyeballs, I have the clean version, but I also have the version or the not tracked changes, but I have our tracked changes version as well to demonstrate where changes were made. A number of things were moved to be footnotes to keep it to keep the full document a bit easier to read. So we can also, if need be, go through some of the changes in more depth, because I pulled that document up as well if that was needed. But this one is much easier for our eyeballs to see and present on. And Tamara, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I totally support and agree with the use of language being really critical and important. The one thing I would caution us against, and given the previous iteration of this board, is we've got bogged down on things that really impeded progress on our ability to do the work. So I absolutely hear the language piece. I am a nitpicker when it comes to like my own writing. But I also want to remind folks that our collective vision, our collective goal should be the end goal is to eliminate the industrialization of homelessness. And while language is important for understanding why and how to do that, it's going to be action oriented. And we have to, kind of come together and crafting our documents, but also taking action and holding accountable the people who have the ultimate power in decision making. So that's all I would say is just let's focus.
Absolutely. So at this time, does anyone have a motion for our next step? If folks are comfortable, we can move to accept this recommendation from our NOFO work group.
We have a board member who we want to, I don't know, but.
Nope. Anyone working from the board with the work group, would you like to make a motion for us to move this forward?
I move to adopt the Seattle King County Continuum of Care values and project priorities as read.
There's a second.
I second.
Alex, can you give us a roll call?
Yes. Sorry, one second, my fingers are not quite as fast as I need. Okay. Patricia Sam.
Move forward. I accept.
Thank you. Tamara Bauman.
Accept.
Kenyatta, she's still here or no? No. Lise Castro.
And this is to keep it the same as it is right now or to make changes?
Did you hear Lise?
I'm sorry.
The motion that Dorsal put was to have it maintained as read.
The one that we went over today.
Yeah, so I heard maintained as read, sorry. I just didn't know if as read meant with the like amendments that you talked on or just like if we ignore all of that. Sorry, we always talk about like a million different proposals and then we turn to a vote and it does not feel clear like which ideas we are and are not encompassing into the vote. So I am fine with the word homelessness. I don't feel like it's a word that needs to be changed.
Are you facilitating?
Well, I mean, two people talking.
I'll accept that kind of behavior from a
Lex,
board
if you
member, but
could
not.
mute,
Just don't.
there's a lot of chatter, it's hard to hear.
Okay, Lise, what was I missed your vote.
I'm fine with it as it is.
Thank you. Jaja, she's just on here. Marvin,
I'll accept.
Antoinette Lambert. Dorsal plants.
Aye.
Thank you. Ruby Romero. I accept. Martha Sacerosi.
Approve.
Christina Selwicki. Oh, give me one second. Let me pull up her. Christina Selwicki. I'm gonna come back to her. Sherry Tillman.
Approve.
Thank you. Galena, wow, Galena's not here. Okay, with 8 votes, the motion is approved.
Thank you for everyone's hard work on the helpful work group.
Thank you. I yield back to the chair.
And the chair would like to make a brief announcement before I hand it back to Kelsey Beckmeyer. The next month, we will be engaging in seating for the alternates on the implementation board and governing boards. For some of us who will be exiting our terms, I always want to give as much time as possible for thoughtful consideration of who will be serving in these spaces. And to remind folks that it is open to COC board members also. The process isn't closed, and it has been proven, if Jaja were here, there's a lot of information that is very helpful and learned by taking part of that work also. Thank you. I will hand it back to Kelsey, who will tell us a little bit more about our convening later this month.
Thank you so much, Marvin. So our COC convening is happening on May 27th. Nope, I lied to you. May 29th. Oh my goodness. May 29th, from 10 to 1 p.m. at St. Mark's Cathedral.
10 to 3.
No, am I completely making things up right now, Catherine?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's 10 to 3.
10 to 3. My goodness. Don't you, what am I doing here? May 29th, 10 to 3. We have a slew of presenters who will be coming in and talking about a number of topics. We will be talking about equal access rule, fair housing, serving folks who are fleeing domestic violence, as well as a section on the Johnson v. Grants Pass case. We currently have 82 people who are RSVP to be in person. We'll have a maximum of 100 people that we can hold in person. And then we have around 27 folks who are going to be attending virtually. We are asking folks to RSVP by May 13th to give us a good idea of where things are. Once we do hit 100 people in person on the RSVP, the RSVP will switch to virtual only, just to make sure we're not going over the limit that we have been given. So very excited to be holding this first convening of 2024. And Lise, I do see your hand.
Hi, are we going to be encouraging masking to make it accessible to disabled individuals who may be immunocompromised?
We will be putting that out in our wording of yes, to encourage masking, folks to be bringing, pens and paper as you need it. Yes, thank you for that, Lise.
Sorry, I used the wrong word. Instead of encouraging, I meant requiring.
I will check around our policies. We typically follow public health guidance. So I will bring that to the COC convening group around recommendations from you on that. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. That is one of my requirements for attending. And then on top of that, I know that there have been a lot of events where masking is encouraged or required. And then once it comes to a shared meal time, that all goes out the window. So all the time spent masked is essentially for naught. So yeah, I would need to be convinced that masking will be required and that meals will still follow safety guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Lise. So
Is there any other updates?
I think those are all the updates we have on the convening. We are looking forward to it and just really thrilled with the RSVP so far and looking forward to holding this event in 28 days. And I
Alrighty,
back to
any
the
other
chair.
questions? Do we have an in-person venue?
Yeah.
And I was just not paying attention, so no. I
Yeah,
didn't get it.
it's St. Mark's.
St. Mark's. Thank you. Already, at this time in our agenda, we're going to take a few minute break. It allows our transcriptionists an opportunity to, I'm sorry, cart provider to catch up and take a small break. So we will rejoin at 3:11.
There's Yeah.
I,
He's not muted for that, so I haven't heard that.
are we unmuted?
Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. Wow, this has been literally a Marvin and Kelsey show. So I want to welcome everybody back. We have a few more action items to get through today. Up next is standing up an ad hoc selection committee for new Continuum of Care board member application reviews. So to that, I will pass it over if Kelsey's rejoined us.
Yes, I am
Yes.
here. Thank you. So we put out and published that we are seeking additional COC board members. Applications are due on May 3rd. And from there, a selection committee will be reviewing. I'm going to share as well the selection committee process, or the application process. This was sent out with the announcement about the seeking of more board members. So we are asking folks to submit applications for the COC Continuum of Care Board. We detail a little bit about the role and commitment. Two of the main functions are to uphold the actions required under HUD Regulation 24 CFR 578, including approval of committee recommendations that do not have appropriation or political components, and then that the KCRHA is the board is also acts as a advisory committee to our implementation board and governing committee, so functioning as a member of that. Board members are expected to attend one regular meeting plus a subcommittee meeting per month, in addition to any special meetings that require a board vote. And all administrative tasks and board member duties typically weigh up to about 15 hours per month, and we ask that all applicants commit to that time frame and at least 2 years, which is the term of your board term is 2 years. There is compensation for folks who have lived experience, and that is completed through providing a time card and documentation of duties. The selection process will happen through a selection committee. This will be made up of at least 3 current COC board members and other interested parties. We will be seeking folks to support this process who are COC members. The selection committee will review all of the board applicants. There are currently 15 applicants right now. The selection committee will review all of those applications and then identify candidates to do a 30-minute phone interview. From those candidates who do the phone interview, the selection committee will then create a recommendation list for board candidates. That recommendation list will go to the full Continuum of Care membership, and we will vote at the spring convening on May 29th. The first half of the convening will be voting for new board members. So a bit of an estimated timeline. Applications, again, are due this Friday on May 3rd. The selection committee will be reviewing and screening applications through May 12th. The COC board will affirm the list of candidates by May 22nd. And then the vote by the COC body occurs on May 29th. So again, if folks are interested in applying, we have applications open until Friday. And an update that we are standing up this committee as soon as this meeting ends in order for the review of applications to be thorough and completed. And I yield the rest of my time back to the chair.
Thank you. How do board members interested in being part of the committee make that?
Yep. If you would like to be a part of the selection committee, please reach out to Catherine. Catherine is helping to support the selection committee.
Good.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Are there any blocks to standing up this ad hoc committee?
Any what?
Objections to standing up this ad hoc committee? I'm going to try something I learned just recently. So we don't, all righty, not hearing any objections. I will take that as consensus or general consensus that that is the way of the work. So can that be recorded in the minutes, and we'll keep moving forward. Alrighty. Thanks, everyone. Up next is learning more about our system performance measures. And I am going to pass it to Board Member Romero, who's doubling as my co-chair today.
Yeah, hello, hi. Tamara's here with us as well. There's Daniel. And Daniel's here. There's my Daniel. How are you? Daniel Ramos from KCRHA is also going to be here. However, I did want to, just for the flow of things, start with the System Performance Committee update, if that's okay. And just kind of tell you what we've been doing in our meetings, and then we can go into the system performance measures. So we are going to have our next meeting, which always happens on the third Wednesday of every month. And I believe that next one is going to be, if I could pull that up for a second. Anyway, we're going to have our next one on the third Wednesday from 2 to 4 as the next public meeting. And what we have done at our last meeting that is different from meetings prior is we started it out with a song, with the lyrics to a song that was selected by our co-chair Tamara. And I wanted to pass it over to her if she wanted to give a little bit about why she chose that song and what the song was.
Yeah, I thank you for that, Ruby. I am learning every day the importance of setting intention. And so what I wanted to do with this last SBC meeting was to start off with a redemption song by Bob Marley, because there's two quotes in particular that really strike me as battle cries for change. And one of those are, how long must we kill our prophets while we stand inside and look? And emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. And so one of the things I really want our system and our, elected officials and everyone to do is to try to decolonize our minds about what we think is the right end all be all of things. Is we have to learn to think outside of what has been the norm. And so I really love the battle cry to decolonize our minds and our thoughts and our ways of being. And so that, and I'm hoping that we can establish a culture of that going forward. If we ground ourselves in justice-oriented, action-oriented, liberatory design for our communities, then that's my dream. And so that's the culture change I'm hoping to do, and the paradigm shift for the community at large. So yeah, I'm not sure what song we'll pick next. Maybe we'll alternate between me and Ruby, but it's important to me that we always set the intention going forward.
Yeah, and I really thank Tamara for uplifting that and kind of spearheading that idea. It's been I think it's important to remember how culture and art is coinciding. So so I thank you for that. And that's a great song. If you haven't listened to it, you should really go do that. And I just also wanted to say that the next meeting will be on May 15th from 2 to 4 p.m. That's our next public meeting. And what we're doing currently as the System Performance Committee is we've been really diving into our metrics through well-being and incorporating the well-being blueprint into our community metrics, and just exactly a work plan that we've developed to do that and execute it. And then that plan is in progress too. So we haven't just made the plan, we've started it, and that's important. And we're also developing the criteria that is going to be going into that, and the really been diving deep into the system performance measures, which we're going to be talking a little bit about today. We're going to have it in multiple episodes, if you will. And so this is episode 1, and we're going to be diving deep into measure 1 and 2 and 7B. I also wanted to uplift that we do have some recruitment that is, that's going on right now. So Daniel, did you want to speak to the recruitment portion, or should we do that?
I'm happy to speak. For anyone out in the public who's watching this meeting or anyone in the meeting, if you would like to, we would love to have you join our System Performance Committee. This committee is the oversight body for the HMIS lead. That is the essentially the team that does the data work, ensuring that the programs that are funded collect data, and then that we report that timely and accurately to HUD and other entities and funders out there. So if you're interested in being at the cutting edge of data and innovation in the world of homelessness and what we're trying to solve here, please join. We especially are looking for folks with lived experience, living experience, and anyone who has any desire or passion for the work. Please join. You can go to the website, the KCRHA landing page, type in System Performance Committee. You can even misspell System Performance Committee. It'll get you to our page. And from there, there's an application. You can click on that, fill it out, send it to me, and we'll review that. And there is one requirement, which is that you have membership in the COC. So I'll walk you through that if there's an interest, but please do consider joining. We would love to have you. Would love to have some more partnership in that. Thank you, Ruby.
Thanks, Daniel. And I can confirm that you can misspell it and it will still bring you to the page. I will confirm that. Thanks for that. That's all for our updates right now, I believe, unless I'm missing anything, and feel free to chime in if I am. But that would move us into the measures and what the system performance measures are and do. So today I'm going to be giving a presentation, which we did send out in the email. There was 2 that were sent out. One was a compressed version with all the information. So if you wanted to go into that expanded version, we did send that out with the materials, right? Yes. Okay. Cool. Yeah, so I guess we should probably pull up the presentation that we're doing today. Good catch. So today, the presentation is going to be on HUD System Performance Measures reports. The full report is in today's packet, and I just wanted to be reviewing the three measures today. So the System Performance Measures is a required report that's to be completed. Oh, it's not, I'm just giving the intro right now. So, okay, yeah, just making sure that we're not missing anything right now. I'm just giving the introduction. And it is a required report that's to be done each year for HUD requirements. To reach the goal of ending homelessness, HUD, or the Department of Housing and Urban Development, has designed the system performance measures to better understand our COC, Continuum of Care's progress. The report measures the length of time people are homeless and the extent that people return to homelessness, and the total number of people experiencing homelessness, employment, and income growth in a COC programs. In our COC programs, the number of people that enter homelessness for the first time, and successful housing placements system-wide. And so that system-wide is an important thing, that they all work intertwined. Each measure, it's hard to identify any sort of trend through just one section of the through one particular measure. So that's important that it works together as a measurement of the entire continuum. And so each of the 7 measures tell a different piece of the story, and all 7 together, like I just mentioned, will help our community make informed choices on where we should be showing a lot of attention to. So like if it's performing or not. The measures that we're going over today are 1, 2, and 7. Measure 1 is the length of time that encourages communities to quickly house people. Can everybody see what's on the screen right now? Is there anything being shown?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Kelsey. So moving forward, each of the 7 measures tell a different piece of the story, and all 7 together will help our community make informed choices. These measures we're going over today are measure 1, 2, and 7. The length of time measure encourages communities to quickly house people, and measure 2 measures those placements were stable. And measure 7 is looks at how many went into permanent housing. So I do want to say we're starting with the acronyms and terms, which is the second slide of the presentation, in case anyone needs to reference that when they're on their own time, and I will try my best to minimize my use of acronyms. So the next slide is kind of the background and that I was just speaking to, and why we sort of chose these measures is because we thought that these would be what people would like to start with, which is the length of time people experience homelessness and how long it took for them to get into those housing programs. So let's go to the next slide. Yes. And remember, we can access these slides at a later time too. So measure 1, it assesses the goal of achieving quick and stable housing for participants and encourages communities to quickly rehouse those participants, helps to discover those who have been homeless for long periods of time. So what we do here is there's a formula that we kind of spoke to, if you want to scroll a little bit down, sorry. And this helps us detect outliers. So the way that we do this is we add up the time spent in emergency shelter and safe havens by each participant during the reporting period. So this is from HMIS data. And then we divide that total from step 1 by the total days of the person by total days, and to obtain the average. And then we calculate the median, and the median is the middlemost number of days for all persons included. So the average is going to be adding all those numbers together, figuring it out what is the most common, and then the median is the actual center middle point. So then we want to go on to, oh yeah, so the median is the dominant trend, I'm sorry, and the mean finds the outliers to the data quality. Average to the mean does tells, and then having one doesn't tell the whole story. So the second measure is, or the second portion of this measure, which we can scroll down to, it's going to be the length of time persons remain homeless, and it includes transitional housing. So 1.1 does not include time spent in transitional housing, but 1.2 does. And that would allow us to kind of indicate what the anticipated time for any given person would be experiencing homelessness. The average detects the very long or the very short times. And then unsheltered time isn't required by HUD, but we do. And so this is the narrative portion. This is the unsheltered time. It's self-reporting. So the individual would give their estimate, or if they have an exact amount of time, and taking those two pieces together, the qualitative and the quantitative, helps us get a better understanding in our continuum. Next slide. So here's the data. On average, there was an increase in the length of time individuals spent in shelters, which, not permanent housing, but that's from 2022 to 2023 by 13 days. There was a decrease in the average days individuals reported spending experiencing homelessness prior to their housing move-in. This could suggest improvements aimed at reducing homelessness, the duration overall. Reducing homelessness, the duration overall may be working despite an increase in the time spent in shelters. So it's important to remember that looking at just one individual data set isn't going to give the whole picture, and that they work in year by year. So a year over year observation will give a better trend. It'll give you a better idea of what the trends are, but that is what the numbers say right here. So we're trying to ask, what does that truly mean, and kind of evaluate that. So thank you. We got the next one is measure 2. And I just want to make sure that I give some space to Daniel to make sure I did touch on everything that's important from measure 1 before moving on to measure 2.
Ruby, I think you did fantastic. That's exactly it. It's really taking HMIS data and looking to see how long people are in shelters and transitional housing. And then, like you said, Ruby and Tamara, we've talked about 1B is really nice because it asks the individual, when did this episode start for you? And let's measure that and the time you're in shelters. So taking in that client voice. I really like how you said that in those first couple of meetings we had about this, Tamara and Ruby. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, maybe we should wait for the questions. So, yeah, sorry, just to get through this really quick, I'm sorry. So measure 2 is the returns to homelessness in 6, 12, and 24 months. So this would assess how the solidity is of the program, and solidity is, you know, having to do with whatever that person's individual idea of, now I can't think of the other word that starts on the notes, but it's fine. Stability.
I think
So
it was stability.
yes, you're right. You're right. Thanks, Tamara. Yeah, the stability. So we didn't want to use the word stability because that's kind of a fluid term for individuals, right? And so we thought that it was a good way to measure the solidification of having a house, you know, staying within the program and maintaining that. So that's kind of where we went to from there. It encourages community to pay attention to the quality and fit as well as volume. And so that's paying attention to what the person goes into the program, if it's something that they are comfortable with, and also the volume of the program, if they have enough staffing to take care of it, everything like that. So can help identify programs and projects needing special attention by flagging high rates of return, and provides information about positive and negative exits. And the returns to homelessness in 6 and 12 months, which is like within a year, obviously, counts the total participants who exited to permanent housing in the prior period, and then count total participants who are also recorded in any SO, is that single occupancy? Single occupancy, sorry about that. Single occupancy or emergency shelter, safe haven, or transitional housing projects at 6 and 12 months post exit to permanent housing. And then we divide those 2 steps by step 2 by step 1 to obtain the fraction % of participants who return to homelessness. So this is kind of measuring, you know, where they're going and how long it, you know, if they've returned to homelessness from a specific program. And that's kind of where we get the gathering the data about transitional housing, maybe not always exiting to the most, you know, or having the the transitional housing that doesn't have necessarily the best outcomes from in regards to permanent housing. So this is where we get those numbers, is we learn how many people are exiting to homelessness from shelter, from transitional housing, from safe havens, and then we're able to observe if that's a successful outcome or not. And we see more success in permanent housing than other aspects. So that's kind of where we get that idea from. Returns to homelessness within 24 months. This one is similar to the last one, but counts total clients who exited to permanent housing less than 24 months ago, or more than 24 months ago. And count, which one is it? It's greater than, so, I mean, sorry, okay. Count total clients who were also recorded in any of the single occupancy, emergency shelter, safe haven, or transitional housing projects within 24 months post-exit to permanent housing. And then you take step 2 and you divide it by step 1 to obtain the fraction or % of the clients who return to homelessness. So I kind of explained how we do that in the last section there. And then here's the numbers that everybody would love to see. So we've got the yellow column is going to be 2022. The blue column is going to be 2023. And then the third white column is going to be the % of returns for each different street outreach. SO is street outreach, everyone. I apologize. I should have paid attention to the acronyms better. Street outreach is what they're measuring. I apologize, not single occupancy. So please make your notes there. And we'll move right along to street outreach and the % of returns to homelessness. As you can see, the total is at 7.06. And then for the returns to 6 to 12 months is at, for everything, comes to 4.09, 4%. And then the return in 24 months is at 15%. And again, it's important to remember that these are the entire system that we're looking at, and that it can seem a little funky when we're looking at just one year in particular. We need to remember that they all are flowing together year over year. So what does it mean? We're still trying to look into the numbers and figure that out year over year.
I want just to interject one time. I wanted to see if anybody could identify a trend just based on looking at these numbers.
Well, I see a consistent trend. Much of this work is done because it's based off of HMIS data. It's what's in the system. And if we're not capturing the entire population, then our numbers aren't reflective of how well we are actually housing folks. And we never answered the question of what are we doing for folks who never received anything, that have simply been unhoused over the last 3 or 4 years. As we consistently watch that number grow, however, HMIS data doesn't move at the same rate. So acknowledging trends, that's the one that I think we need to do a better job with, which is capturing the whole of the unhoused population as best as we can, so that our measures actually give us numbers that we can work with.
That's a great point, Marvin. I really appreciate that. And I'd like to uplift that statement a little bit too, but with what we do have, you know, we can measure some things like the returns to homelessness from our system. Can you scroll down just a little bit? So the number of returns within 2 years varied across different categories of housing programs, with percentages ranging from 9% to 22% of returns to homelessness. We tend to see shelters have the higher returns to homelessness. And then the percentages varied between, that's just my assumption, or my observation, I should say. The percentages varied between intervention types, but the count was overall down by 10% from the previous year's returns. So that could speak to more permanent housing units becoming online. It could also speak to the programs that they were entering, you know, co-lead and such, that tends to have high outcome rates, and shout out to co-lead. So that could be, that these are all assumptions and observations on my own accord. So these are just what I see. Measure 7 is going to be successful housing placements, kind of what we were just speaking to, and it's viewed with measure 1 and measure 2 to assess the solidity of placements, measures positive exits rather than all exits. And there's a really cool HMIS document that I got to see where it had all the coding and like how you actually like do these like formula equations, whatever they're called. And so there's definitely math that goes into it. Measures movement through the continuum to permanent housing, as well as placements from street outreach. And then continuously collected data is an important tool for assessing system effectiveness. Again, the year-over-year statement you keep hearing me repeat. And so the way we get this number is the participants that are currently in emergency shelter, safe havens, transitional housing, and permanent housing, or with rapid rehousing funding, or with voucher, who exited into the current period. So that's, I'm going to reread that again. Participants currently in these different housing programs, emergency shelter, safe haven, transitional housing, and permanent housing with rapid rehousing, who exited in the current period, and that's usually a year. All participants in emergency shelter, safe haven, transitional housing, and permanent housing, rapid rehousing, who then exited to permanent housing. And then you divide those two for the step 2 by step 1 for the percent of successful exits. So that's kind of how we get that number. And here's those digits right there. Again, we've got yellow for 2022, we've got blue for 2023, and white is the change. So the difference in the two numbers. So for metric B1, the percentage of successful exits to permanent housing destinations from emergency shelters, transitional housing, and permanent supportive housing increased by 6%. So that seems like that's pretty cut and dry good. For metric 7B2, the percentage of successful exits or retention in permanent housing remained consistent at 96%. And that's for the entire system, for all programs being evaluated. So
just a quick question. How long is the retention covered? How long do we able to keep track? Is it a year, 2 years? I mean, how long do we?
I think it's, let me scroll down a little bit. No, maybe it's not coming. Daniel, do you mind taking that one?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Marvin. The cohort are those that exit within the report range, which starts October 1st to September 30th, which is the HUD's fiscal year. So it takes a look at everyone who exited during that time period That's the denominator. And then everybody who exited to permanent housing of that group. And that's where you get that percentage. So it's looking at that 1 year. And what HUD asks is, look at what happened last year, look at what happened the next year, and so on and so forth, and keep comparing yourself to see if you're making improvements.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for that clarification. So, yeah, so we spoke to the successful, the consistent 96%. I think there might be one more slide maybe, and that would be the successful housing placement. So this is the metric 7A one, and that's the percentage of successful exits from street outreach. So that's starting a little bit before entering the shelter system. From street outreach to permanent housing destinations increased by 9%. So I believe that when you go into HMIS and you're entering people, one of the first things that they, have you signify as the street outreach or not. So the data quality is extremely important for this measure to be accurate. And again, that's why we put it in at the very beginning, and that exits and exit destinations are recorded accurately in HMIS. And then I would just say that, again, we do have that compressed version available that can really be a good access for you. And then if I have any other questions, we can take them now briefly. I think we have a few minutes. We can.
I have a question. So for 2A and 2B, are those numbers entirely and only taken from HMIS?
Daniel, I'm diverting to Daniel.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And for all of these measures, all we have is the HMIS, the Homeless Management Information System. This is not taking into consideration other administrative data or other data points that we might have in other systems. And that's mostly driven because this is a HUD report that we're required to submit as the recipient of the COC funds each and every year. So it only asks that we look at the HMIS data. Really good question.
Okay. So thank you. And I'd say part of my concern extends past like just the HUD requirements and into like improved services. So is there a solution to two situations? One, I am a de-identified domestic violence survivor and I enter into a confidential domestic violence shelter. I am placed into housing and listed in HMIS as PSH. I become homeless in 30 days and enter a different confidential DV program. Do not tell them about the shelter I first stayed at. Would I be assigned a new identifier and thus look like two different people in the system? And in addition to that, since HMIS is specific to just King County, are you able to see when, say, for example, the shelter here causes major trauma to my family and I take them to Spokane or I take them to North Carolina where I'm still homeless, but that shelter is now saying, well, they moved to stay with their family and they are permanently housed in North Carolina with their family. And I will just caveat that as a provider, I contacted KCRHA when a family returned to my shelter and was told, nope, that 0 returns to homelessness. That's an automated number. We appreciate you self-reporting. It's good that you care, but we're going to leave your returns to homelessness as 0. Yeah, I'll stop.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say that, that's kind of like what we're uplifting when it comes to making community metrics and kind of how we measure, those sort of things here that can differ from HUD and that we don't have to report to HUD about, and that we can really start to dig deep into like what we want to be measuring as a continuum. And that's kind of why I'm, bringing this to the table now is so we understand, like, I think everybody had reflected that they wanted to deep dive these so we can make it better, and then I think that even if we're not doing it at the HUD level and we're doing it just at our COC level, then that's good. All right. Yeah, I think we've got time. Yeah, we got a question.
Yes, it's just brief. I just want to say I've been interrupted 3 times when I said I would wait till the end.
Thank you.
Anyway, I recognize that we're working from the COC policies, our CFR subchapter C, part 578. Can you remind us, what are these measures? What subsections are these measures listed in? Because I don't see it in the slide.
That's good points. Yeah, that's fine. I would say, can I follow up with you on that? Just because I don't have it off the top of my head right now.
Yes,
Okay.
early feedback, that would be amazing to have on the slide.
Yeah, no, that is great. And I appreciate that. That's a major, I'm a huge site. I love citing stuff. So, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I appreciate like y'all, the committee working on this so hard and presenting this to us. But one of my hypervigilance symptoms when it comes to my just personal journey with this experience in trauma, both professionally and live. I'm still gonna wanna look all this up on my own,
Yeah,
which I have been, and we should give the entire continuum the empowerment to do the same thing, but then of course the committee's gonna give it in the committee language or the advocacy. The committee, wants to highlight X, Y, Z, but the entire continuum should be given the skills and the opportunity
Yeah.
to look up the actual text that which all of these things are coming from.
Sure. And yeah, no, and I hear you. And I'd say that we definitely did pull from the actual HUD measurements. And so I think
That's
that.
clear. I'm not necessarily asking this question for me.
Uh-huh.
I'm concerned about the entire continuum
Okay.
membership. So thank you.
Mhm, thank you. And then we gotta do it. Yeah. Okay. Back to the chair.
Running on to.
Alrighty,
Oh, that was
Dr.
great.
Dr. Sam, are you calling time?
Yes.
Thank you, and I was acknowledged. Already, on our agenda, we have a 2-minute break here. So
Or Eileen.
we will start again at 3:50 and we'll. be in the hall.
Eileen is great if you wanted to continue.
Oh, thanks, Eileen.
Thank you, Eileen.
Sure.
So yes, and I will pass it to my,
Back to me. Yeah.
back to. back to
Okay,
you.
and back to myself. So, yeah, for the cross-cutting policy work group update, I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that we are still accepting applications for the cross-cutting policy work group. And I really would encourage everybody that has really, crucial information when it comes to like what they, if you've been paying attention, what do you want to see changed? And let's start to do that stuff in this work group together. I really encourage people that have maybe had bad experiences with different portions of, law enforcement or what have you, and things like that to definitely apply. We would love to start to work these problems out from the bottom up. And I also would just like to say that you can find the application online, I believe. Kelsey, are you still on the call? Could you give a little bit about where exactly the application is? Because I know it was sent out to the COC.
The cross-cutting policy application is on the website. If you go to our COC, just the HUD Continuum of Care board landing page. And it is, you scroll down to the bottom under COC work groups and the application link is there. And I will also put that
in the chat. Awesome, perfect. Yeah, and so that is going to be open until May 31st, which is the end of the month. And so I'm really hoping to see some applications trickle in. I think we've had a few come in so far, maybe. And yeah, I'd love to encourage council members, if they're listening, to join as well. I went and spoke at the Housing and Human Services Committee. So really hoping that we can have one of our council members join us on this lovely tour of the legal system, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, okay, thank you. So that's it.
She wanted to ask us.
Oh, I did that.
We
Started
did,
it. Yeah,
yes.
started it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Back to the chair.
Why, thank you. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Some next steps. That I always want to prepare the group for a period of change. We experienced it almost a year ago when we brought several new board members on. Many lessons were learned. I am sure that we will have scheduled onboarding of new board members and continue our board trainings in the upcoming months through the summer. So I hope that goes well for everyone. And I always highlight that these meetings don't just happen. Every Monday, 3 p.m. KCRHA staff for the board and the board members themselves develop the agendas, do the planning, prepare presentations. And it's work that is valuable, and it helps center what I have experienced is focused on the board and what the board has decided as the work, that we've heard from the continuum that we should be doing. So it's an open meeting. Please feel free and welcome to come. Tamara.
Yes, and I just want to encourage everyone to reach out to your personal, professional networks and to encourage folks to apply ASAP, especially because this is a really important opportunity for you to experience what it means to have like institutional power and the responsibility that comes along with that. And if you really want to see, like, change the adverse conditions of our communities to really uplift, empower, and elevate the voices that have historically been marginalized, that have historically been excluded from mainstream resources and policy development, this is your opportunity to shine. This is your opportunity to challenge the status quo of what the homeless response system has been since time started. We need to change the conditions of our communities that keep homelessness an industry. I want to see us work ourselves out of jobs. This should not even be a freaking issue anymore. It's 2024. We need to find our values. We need to be in alignment with our values. And we need to challenge the people who think criminalization is the way to handle problems, is the way to solve injustice. No, that's not it. Reclaim our power. We need to claim it, use it, exercise it, and let people know who have the concentrated power and decision-making. You are not going to abuse our vulnerable community members. I will personally stand in between systems and my people as a measure of protection, because I know what it's like to navigate systems that were not set up for me, that were not designed for me. And so if I'm also a service provider, so I see it from my personal lived experience, my service to the community in provision of services, and at a policy level, systems level, we got to do better. And the way we do that is pushing back against status quo policies that keep people in poverty, that keep economic deprivation, a norm, a social norm. And yeah, I'm just saying, use your power, get it, girl. And let's do this.
Yeah, thank you for that, Tamara. Sorry, that's great.
And on that note, is there anything else for the good of the order today?
Yeah, sorry, one last thing that just popped into my brain. Out of the top 10 countries that are experiencing great high rates of homelessness, we are on that list at number 9 in the United States. We are on that list alongside some like India, Indonesia, Sudan, and other countries. You can look this up. And then also, but our GDP is quite substantially higher than the rest of those countries. So I'm just really calling to action on that. We need to maybe reflect our GDP into our homelessness services. Thank you.
I'm not sure if you guys see my hand, but to piggyback off what Tamara said, and I'll just since we're ending now, to remind each other that we are not working against each other. We are not each other's enemies. So we come to these spaces, although we have to accept that we all come from different background stories and levels of expertise, and what we've been through and our different ways of advocating for each other. We have to realize that it's all different, but we all stand for the same thing. At least I hope to say that we're trying to stand for the same thing. So welcome other people's way of expressing themselves and challenging each other, but doing it with love and not like becoming each other's enemies. So if someone doesn't agree with what you're saying or your tone, try to give them grace because you don't know what they're dealing with and things like that. But we are not each other's enemies. So I really want us to continue as we go through these different things, whether this is your first day on the board or you've been on the board for years, and that's any board, any coalition, any group. We are in this for the greater good and to make change. So just please, let's try to direct our energy of fire and rage to the people that are causing this mess. We're just each other's allies. So I just want us to remind us that, and I'll remind us each and every time we're gathered to remind us ourselves we are not the enemy. We don't always have to agree on terms and changes and ideas, but be respectful in the way that you do it. And that I'm not don't policing or anything like that. I just want us to remind each other we're all trying to help in homelessness. That's all. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Brandon, and thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next week at the IB board. If there's anything else for the good of the order, our next meeting will be June 5th, 2024, and everyone have a great afternoon.
Austin needs you to call him. Austin, I don't know, he just asked me to ask you.
Oh, it's my phone then.
Fine.